recording. And I think we'll get started here. So thank you all for coming tonight. This is really exciting. It's nice to see such a well-attended group. I'm glad to see that there's such interest in the Runner Friendly Community Program. I think it's one of the more exciting things we do at the RRCA. We have two really special guests here to kind of share the ways that it can benefit your community, and I think creative ways to think about how not only the application process, but also once you obtain the designation, how it can pay dividends for many, many years down the road. So excited to have them both here. Just a couple bit of housekeeping. I think everyone got the message, but we're going to do a sort of a presentation component to start. That's going to be 35 to 40 minutes or so. If you could just stay on mute during that, that'd be great. If you can drop any questions in the chat, I'll make note of them, and then we'll call on folks after the presentations are done to ask that of the two presenters. I think that can be a little more informal and some dialogue if it fits. But until that portion, please just do kind of keep yourself on mute. As I mentioned, also we are recording this, so just keep that in mind, as you follow along tonight. So with that being said, I want to introduce our two excellent presenters. We have, like I said, two folks that are here tonight. We have Meg Treat, who is the strategic communication specialist focused on endurance events, and Jeff Fedorko, who is the race director of the Virginia 10 Miler and owner of Riverside Runners. Meg has consulted with multiple communities in applying for runner-friendly status, and she's going to talk about the application process as an opportunity to build relationships and forge connections that have benefits that extend well beyond submission. And Jeff also has a unique perspective in that he spearheaded Lynchburg, Virginia's runner-friendly community submission back in 2011. And he's going to talk about how going on 12 years now, they've continued to utilize that designation to benefit the local running community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Meg, who is going to be our first presenter of the evening.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you all for being here. I'll get my slides going here to get us started. But so thrilled to hear that there's so much interest in runner-friendly communities. This is something that my team and I will often bring up to the event directors that we work with, and they may be hearing about it for the first time in most cases. It's a really wonderful tool and opportunity for our entire running community, whether you're an event director, a club leader, or connected to our running industry in some other way. And I think that it's highly underutilized, and I hope that tonight you end up feeling very empowered to step away to either support an application that your community is making or to spearhead it. Tonight, with that on our agenda, I really want to talk about these key topics with you. First and foremost, just going through the history of the designation, what it's meant for. Talk a little bit about what the application process looks like and what you can expect as a part of it. I'll also talk about the benefits that events, clubs, and other stakeholders can see from earning the designation. Things that you can do after earning it to leverage it and use it to your advantage, and also how to renew it, because something that we see is that some communities do earn the designation but then forget to renew, and it's great to keep this current and ensure that this is something that your community can continue to tout for years to come. Thank you, Andy, again for the quick introduction. A little more in-depth on my end, just so you know why I should even be talking to you about this and why you can trust me. Hi, I'm Meg. It's so nice to meet all of you. I'm a PR professional. I'm a PR educator. I'm an entrepreneur, but the thing that I want you to know most about me is I'm an endurance athlete. I'm very fortunate that I get to combine my passion for running that I picked up as an adult, went from couch to 5K to full marathoner in 18 months, with my love for my work in public relations and strategic communications. And I get to live that out every day with the agency that I own, Treat Public Relations. We're a small but mighty team that serves some of the largest running events across the United States. I also teach public relations at my fair alma mater, Purdue University. I'm here in Orange County, California, so I'm used to teaching over Zoom. Thank goodness. It's been a lot colder in West Lafayette than it's been here in Orange County. And I'm also the president of my local PR professional group, the PR Society of America. I've worked in all sorts of strategic communication settings, from corporations to other boutique agencies across the country. I have a lot of pieces of paper with my name on it to show you that I got the book smarts, but indeed I have the street smarts too, as a member of the running community in the many different locales that I've been lucky to be a runner in. And so I want to thank you all for what you do to build running communities. It's what made me feel a part of a sport that I didn't necessarily know that I could be a part of, and that has completely enriched my life. So thank you for all that you do to bring this to life. And thank you for the opportunity to help be a small part of telling the story of your running community. In terms of the runner-friendly community designation, my team and I have helped with two successful applications for the designation. Most recently for Boulder, Colorado, through our client Boulderthon, which is the Boulder Marathon. And then way back when I first started the agency, when it was just me, I had the Tallahassee Marathon as one of my first clients, and helped create and send in the application for their successful designation back in 2017, I believe. So I've kind of seen how the process has changed, how the designation has changed, but overall, the purpose of it remains the same. You know, there's kind of two opportunities here. First and foremost, the RRCA has shared that, you know, the goal primarily is to allow you to spotlight your community, right? To bring it up to national attention, to give it the kudos that it deserves for the infrastructure, the processes, the community that it's put in place to make it runner friendly. But it's also for those communities that might not be runner friendly yet, or who want to continue to grow the sport. It's an incentive, it's a bar, right? It's a new standard that folks can follow to understand what it really takes to invest in our sport in their community. It was launched back in 2010 by the RRCA. And if you check out on the runner-friendly community section of the RRCA website, you'll see that there, by my count, Andy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there are about 80 communities that have earned the designation over the years, just 40 who are current with their designation. But it evaluates a few different things. The application is going to ask you to cover community infrastructure. Are there water fountains along the running trails in your community? Is there parking near popular running routes? Community support. Do you have a great local running store that provides high quality equipment and shoes and apparel to the runners in your community? How many events go on in your community? How many 5Ks, how many marathons, and how many people show up to those events? It also looks at local government support. Is it easy to get the permits from your local government to put on the races that your club produces? What type of insurance does your government require for that permitting process? And do they promote physical fitness in any other way through different community activities or activations? There's also a final section where you really get to show off some of the more unique features of what makes your running friendly community so runner friendly. In the additional support section, you can talk about things like youth running programs in your community, how local media shares the story of running in your community, either by covering the races that you put on, showcasing programs, and also too, you have the opportunity to upload some multimedia things for storytelling, like a video explaining why and showing why your community is so runner friendly. If you're curious about if this is only for big cities, highly populated areas, it's not. Even the most recent class of runner-friendly communities are from smaller communities. Yes, you'll see Los Angeles and New York City on the list, but you'll also see Boulder, Colorado, Carrollton, Georgia, Cleveland, Tennessee. No matter the size of your community, you can showcase, what makes it a great place for runners to live and thrive in the sport. So don't be afraid that your community might be too small, too remote, too big. It's all really an opportunity here for every type of community to shine. I want to pause quickly and see, Andy, do we have lots of questions stacking up here in the chat that I should address for right now, or should we keep moving?
I think we're doing okay. The I was able to sort of answer one, which was just about whether or not a public relations person is necessary to complete the application, and we can. That's an easy answer for us, and we can. I think you can keep moving. I think we're doing okay.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure you shared that definitely not necessary. Might be helpful. We love creating great relationships for you, but definitely not necessary. We have the great skills to help you do it, but anyone can fill out this application here for their community. Then moving ahead, let's talk a little bit about timeline. So there are 2 deadlines throughout the year for runner-friendly community applications. The first one is in July and the second one is in November. I think that it will vary from community to community, but for our team, working with multiple different stakeholder groups, local government, local tourism board, running clubs, events, to put together a super strong application, at the smallest amount of time, it took us about 3 months to put a thoughtful application together. And when we were doing one that was really robust, 6 months. But I think that if you have the ability to call a lot of this data up quickly because you are already tapped in to be the right person to grab that data, you're the holder of it, which we'll talk about here in a second, it could be even less time. But just to give you an idea of how it shakes out, this was kind of our experience with putting together applications for our 2 clients in the past. So how does that application work? On the RRCA website, you can navigate to the Programs tab, and there you will find Runner-Friendly Community Designation. You can see lists of the runner-friendly communities that are currently there. You can even see runner-friendly businesses, which is another great designation offered. But if you scroll down on the main runner-friendly community designation page, you'll see a button that says Apply that will take you to the form that you fill out to complete your application. I highly recommend taking the questions from the application and popping them into a Word document. That way you can go back and save your answers and update data points and information that you're including as you go, instead of trying to complete it on the form and then having to make sure you don't close the website, don't have to come back to it later and it's lost some of the information. So we really think that it's helpful to put it into a Word doc. There you can spell check it, you can grammar check it, and make sure that it's all set before you hit apply after copying and pasting your answers into the form. But, just like any other type of communication that you might put out, it's certainly important to think about how you can keep your answers concise. We know that the RRCA board is reviewing applications and that their time is valuable. Also including compelling data points, right? Not just saying, hey, our community is great, runners love to be here, but being able to back it up with, we've had a 20% increase in participation in running events in our community, or our running store here had to expand to a second location because there was so much demand. Our mayor has been showing up to every single event to be the official starter and blow off the starting gun or the starting horn. Giving that compelling data and showing concrete examples of what makes your community so runner-friendly is going to make for a strong application. I just mentioned to you that there are 2 different time frames that you can submit your application in, either leading up to July 1st or leading up to November 1st. I like to recommend that you think about a strategic time to apply for the designation. When we've applied in the past, we've done both windows before, summer and fall, or winter, I suppose. And for July, I guess you can correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but typically we have heard back on the July applications around September. And we've heard back about those November applications around January. So for our 2 clients, we suggested applying for the round of review that would lead to the announcement of them receiving the designation right before race day. It allowed for a newsworthy thing to talk about with the race coming up. It allowed us to invite the mayor so that there could be, a photo op of handing off the plaque that you get when you have this designation come through. But I think that if you have a big club meeting coming up, if you have a major race in your community coming up, it can be thoughtful to pick a day that's really going to work for you in terms of when it's announced. Go ahead and leverage the newsworthiness of it.
Yeah, I don't mean,
Oh.
I would say just to, since you asked me, I will chime in and say, yeah, that those are largely accurate in terms of turnaround time on the applications. I will also say, just kind of a behind the scenes peek, is that we've toyed around with those dates a lot, and it's kind of imperfect, and it's hard to find exactly what makes the most sense for submission times. But that seems to be the summer and then the fall, what works best. I will put it on this call, and I think it's true that if there are specific deadlines that would make the most sense for your race, we can probably also work with you a little bit to make sure that that's done and prepared if there's a tighter timeline. So that's a great way to think about it, and I think we can be somewhat flexible to help you out too if that's helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. When you review the questions that are on the application, you might notice that there are some data points that you don't know, like how many miles of uninterrupted pedestrian trails are there in my community? Are there water fountains all along that, and how many are there? How many people do visit our community, and what's the economic impact of one of the largest races that we host during the year? It's really important to think about involving other key stakeholders in your community in the application process, not only just to make sure that everybody gets a chance to enjoy the benefits of the designation, but it will give you access to some of the information that you need to fill out a thoughtful and complete application. So whether that is engaging with your own club or other local running clubs and groups in your community, reaching out to the mayor's office or to the Parks and Recreation Department and other officials and leaders who are involved in your running community. Other local races, if you're an event who's spearheading the application process for runner-friendly community where you live, it's something that's going to benefit all the events that go on in the community. So it can be great to go ahead and speak with them to see if they have any compelling data and information to include. And finally, too, I know, Randy, you mentioned this as a tourism ambassador, your local tourism board, if you have one in your community, whether it's Visit Tallahassee or Visit Boulder, Visit Ventura, it could be a convention and visitors authority in your community. They sometimes have really great access to data points about how community events and community organizations impact that tourism and provide economic impact in your city. So those are all great people to go ahead and let know that you're planning on submitting this application, and share questions with them that you think that they can add compelling information to. Some other helpful places to look for the types of information that you might include in your application. First and foremost, the US Census. It might seem silly and very basic, but having demographic information and total population information can give you a great starting place for understanding just how many, what percentage of your community is involved in running and is taking part in events. Also, running in the USA, a tried and true running calendar that posts up events, that's an easy place to count just how many running and road racing or trail racing events are happening in your community. Doing a quick search for your county, for your city, to understand when those are happening, how frequently, and how many total you have in your community. Parks and Rec often has some of the best data points for a runner-friendly community application. We are often digging into the Parks and Recreation's website when we do applications for our clients, which I don't know how much traffic they get otherwise, but we're glad to be on there and have great access to information there. whether it's the amount of trails that you have available, maps of the most popular, areas where people take part in outdoor recreation, an understanding of what they're investing into the community too. Sometimes it might have information about, a new expansion of a local park or the building of a new trail, what that looks like from a dollar investment standpoint that they are putting into the creation of that, or what they believe the community impact will be. Running USA, another great professional organization for us here in the running community, also publishes different reports with statistics that can be helpful for you to be able to not only just share how the running community at large is doing, but be able to compare to how you're doing on the local level versus what is going on at the national level. Certainly for Boulderthon and their application for Boulder, we were able to showcase that a lot of the local running events in Boulder were having a bigger growth post-COVID than what was being seen nationally for other races. So showing that the local community was really jumping in back to road racing was a nice way to talk about, what the community support looks like in Boulder, Colorado. And finally, too, the RRCA's website has its Find Local search that's right there on the homepage navigation. You can look up events, clubs, different folks within your community like race directors who can be great resources and give you an understanding of total counts of running clubs, events, etc., where you live. Now, we've submitted these 2 applications, and we're 2 for 2. We're doing good. We've submitted these 2 applications, and both have been accepted and have earned the designation. We have written up a couple in between those 2 where we realized that it wasn't totally a slam dunk. Now, most of your communities are totally going to qualify. If you're here and you have an RRCA club in your community and it has involved engaged leaders like you, I'm not too worried about it. But we did have a couple of communities come up where we discovered there wasn't an RRCA club in the area, that there were only a couple of running events happening throughout the year, that local government was just starting to engage and support those running events. And I guess what I would say is that if you end up putting together your application, it feels like you haven't met some of the criteria, or you haven't been able to find data points that feel like they're going to make you feel confident when you hit the submit button. It's totally okay to take this as an opportunity to understand where the standard is and dream of that next step, that strategic plan of what's going to get you there. It's a great opportunity to build better relationships with those stakeholders. Say, hey, we really want to earn this designation in the future. And that means that we really need to beef up how our local government is supporting our races. What can we do to involve you more? Where are there places that we can host a run at work day or other bits of engagement that would be helpful to it? But feel free to give yourself more time, more resources. Again, this is a rolling application process with those 2 key deadlines. So it could be that in just a couple more months, you have the things that you want to showcase set up and secured. So don't be afraid to continue to review and keep your application on file as you move forward. So all of this is great, right? You're like, cool, Meg, I'll submit an application, but why do this? What is it really going to get me? First and foremost, I think that it opens the door to conversations that you might not already be having in your community about engaging with these different stakeholder groups. It's a nice way to build the bridge, create that new relationship so that you can have that as a benefit moving forward. And also too, if there are things that are lacking, or if there are things that really stand out as a big strength in the community, it gets those conversations going where you can either acknowledge where you're headed, or you can acknowledge and, shout out the community for all it's already doing for running in your area. But it really is an opportunity to open doors to these new connections and make sure that throughout the growth of the running community in your area, even if it's already long-standing and strong, that it just keeps getting stronger. From a marketing perspective, Certainly we see a lot of opportunities for it, and it's why we encourage our clients to take part in runner-friendly community designations. We always utilize the announcement of the designation being earned, not only to showcase the RRCA's press release that they put out about who has joined the group of runner-friendly communities across the US, but we also create one for the race itself, push it out to local media, and we see a lot of great press pickup for runner-friendly community designations. It's something that ends up being a source of pride for the city. It's something newsworthy and special that doesn't happen all the time. And we typically see that even in local communities, it has a lot of that gravitas that makes reporters want to share this news out with the local community. It's great to add the logo to your website or add a page about the runner-friendly community designation, how you got it, and what it means to your event. You can, of course, post it on social and share out to your different channels there, or even send out an email blast that lets your community know more about this designation, why it was earned, and how they can help you hold on to it. Now, it's great to share it with your own audiences and with the media, but you also can share it with the community. I think the best thing about the runner-friendly community designation is that it doesn't end up just being owned by the event that submitted for it or the club that submitted for it. It really is for the whole community, from the running store owner to the race director to the club president to the club member. Everyone has a chance to be involved in celebrating and showcasing this designation. I like to encourage whoever is spearheading the application to send thank you notes to the people that helped. Certainly a good old-fashioned thank you note. It goes a long way. And it's nice to send out an email once the designation is earned to everyone, even if they weren't involved in the application process. Other race directors, other running groups in your community, runner-friendly businesses that might be in your community, to share the logo, share the definition of what this designation is, and invite them to utilize it the same as you are in your own marketing assets and communications. Also, even though it's a beautiful plaque, and I love the plaque, and I wish they were sitting up here on my shelf above my computer, the plaque that you get for earning this designation, I've always ended up encouraging our clients to hand off to the mayor. After all, it is a designation for the city, and it makes for a great photo op. And that can either be at, a club meeting that you share that. I've presented it at a city council meeting before. We've had the mayor come out to on race morning, and in the race announcements right before the starting gun, we do the little handshake and photo op. Actually, right before we jumped in, I realized I should probably pull these, but here are both of those instances here. It makes for a nice bit of content. And certainly city officials love to have good, pretty photos with pretty flags that they can showcase to their constituents. Now, when it comes to renewal, renewal is something that you'll want to do every 5 years. So when you earn your designation, it's for a 5-year period. And when you reapply for your renewal, it's a much more abbreviated process, and the RRCA has designed it as such to make it easy for you to apply for renewal. It's a lot more of the multiple choice and checkbox questions versus some of the essay questions that you might see, or long form answer questions that you'll see in the original application. But definitely plan to renew. It's going to be easy to do. It's going to be a thoughtful thing to have in your back pocket. Mark it down, even if it's going to be a club president 5 years from now that's going to be taking care of it, or if you're selling your event to a new director who's going to be handling the renewal years down the line. Go ahead, and if you weren't the one who spearheaded your application, if you already have a runner-friendly community designation for your area, go check out if you're up for renewal. It might be a great time to do that, and even reach out to the club or the event who spearheaded it and say, hey, do you want help with renewing? I want to make sure that our community can hold on to this designation. And Andy, one thing that I should have asked you before we got started that I just thought of, from the new renewal process, is there any kind of point of no return where people need to fill out the full application again if their city has earned it in the past?
That's a good question. No, I mean, I think, we do kind of put some check marks in place, and our goal is to help you stay certified and designated. And so, I think if it's been gone through the full review initially, then the abbreviated one is fine in whatever point you come up for renewal.
Great. Well, with that, I have a couple of slides to share a little bit more about Treat PR with you, but would it be helpful to address some questions here first, Andy, or would you like to wait until after Jeff has a chance to chat with the group?
Meg, if there are any that you see that are specifically you think are pressing or whatever, or feel like merit immediate attention, that's totally fine. Otherwise, I'm happy to kick it to Jeff. We've had an actually nice conversation in the comments about some of these, which I think has been great. So,
Oh, great. I'm so
yeah.
glad. This is really helpful, and I see that you've addressed a lot of these already, Andy. I really like your question, Mary. It brings up that there are lots of great designations like this that cities love to show off. So definitely know that even if it feels like something extra or maybe something fluffy, your city's going to love having this to tout for their community. Let's see. And then it looks like for Peter, I see your question here about done for major cities or suburbs or even like counties or kind of greater areas. Andy, can you shed some light on where we kind of draw the line for how we group communities together?
Yeah, and I think actually I may ask you to draw on sort of your own experience in Boulder and Tallahassee as I answer this. We're pretty liberal about what we think of as a community. I think it's more, is there the bandwidth, the initiative to take this on, and is it a community or town or whatever sort of area is applying? Does it have the specifics to meet the criteria? And if those two things are in place, then I think it's by all means good to go. Minneapolis and St. Paul kind of did a joint application together, and that's fine. That's what worked for them when doing that. We've had some more planned communities do it because they had a club and a robust running scene and had met all the criteria, and so that fits the designation. I think it's more about is there an initiative to take it on, and does it meet the standard more than anything. In either of your experiences with Boulder and Tallahassee, was there a broader county, or is it pretty clear that it was just these two kind of areas that made sense for the application itself?
Yeah, in particular for these two communities, they were distinct enough in their kind of running community and where they kind of drew the borders around that. I think we just called it for both cities individually. That said, we certainly had a lot of folks from the Denver area coming in for events and for, different aspects of our running community there. And in Tallahassee, it's a little more isolated with some smaller towns around it. But I think that even in kind of just the wider county, most people would be coming into Tallahassee for participating in clubs, in events, etc. So we ended up with those two cities being the focus, but even for another application that we were working on that was in the suburbs of Boston, we put that one on pause, but it's something that we considered about whether or not we should expand it to kind of a greater area situation. And I think that may have been very beneficial to that application, especially as we revisit it here in the coming months. So definitely nice to know that that's an option.
Yeah, and maybe that's a way to think about it too, that is if your own community itself maybe doesn't quite fit everything or doesn't meet the runner-friendly community standard, maybe expanding it outward a little bit and working with a neighboring town to kind of do something like that. And there's a way to classify that makes sense and can just share the designation. Again, our goal here really is to recognize the communities that want to do this, that are runner-friendly, and I think as Meg has outlined so well, it's as much about the application process and bringing different entities together, and also just, you know, what it can mean for the community going forward to have this designation. So that's kind of our goal.
Love it. And then to address Mary's question too, a little more specifically, I know Mary, I mentioned that we have the plaques that the RRCA provides to you for winning that designation. But are there any other signs or things, Andy, that are provided, or could a community produce a sign that they want to put up alongside, you know, bike friendly, tree friendly, Rotary Club, etc.?
I will say two things. One is that we're always happy to work with the community to buy an extra plaque, or, you know, you can have as many plaques as you want. I know some have given to the mayor and then wanted them for themselves, and so, you know, that they are sort of, we'll work with you to make sure that that's available. So don't worry about, you know, if you want one in your clubhouse, you know, don't miss the photo op because of that. But your question about signs is actually a wonderful transition to Jeff Fedorko from Lynchburg, who in his more than a decade as the leader of a runner-friendly community, and someone that spearheaded an initial application, and someone that's really used the designation in creative ways. I believe signs are one of the many things that they have done, but I'll let Jeff sort of take the floor and share his experiences. I think having Jeff on the call as someone that's had this designation for a long time, to share his expertise is really beneficial. So, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Andy. Thank you so much for having me tonight. And thank you, Meg. That was a great overview of runner-friendly communities. Lynchburg, Virginia is located in central Virginia in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. We're about 180 miles southwest of Washington, D.C., a community that in 2010, when we began our application process, was a independent city of about 65,000 people. And here we are in 2024, a city of about 85,000. And we serve a running community of really about 250,000. So as was pointed out in the presentation, this designation is available to communities of all sizes. And we were lucky enough after our designation to be selected as the friendliest running community. I'm not sure, Andy, if you still do that. Do you pick a applicant?
We actually dropped that part of it, mostly because it was splitting hairs. A lot of these applications are outstanding, and you know, sometimes it was clear, you know, that one was above, but it's the quality of applications, I think, even in my tenure, improved to such a degree that it was not.
They've just gotten better and better.
To make that. Yeah,
I agree. Well, then I'm going to hold on to that then. So yeah, we've been a runner-friendly community for quite some time, and I was saying prior to the call to Andy and sharing with Meg that, in my opinion, having been a member of the running community here for more than 30 years, this designation for our city, for our club, which celebrated 50 years last year as a running club, has been one of the most impactful endeavors that we went through back in 2010 to inventory our running community. And then after that designation, to really use it as a way to benchmark where we are as a running community, to still take pride in the resources we have that make Lynchburg unique, and to continue to engage those stakeholders that we reached out to when we started the application process. We submitted a document that numbered, and this isn't to intimidate anyone, but it does show how enthusiastic Lynchburg was in applying. We ended up with a document of more than 118 pages that captured everything from, and Meg pointed some of these things out, but the support that we get from the city, in terms of its infrastructure, sidewalks, supporting the permit process. We had letters of recommendation from the mayor, from the police chief, from the head of Parks and Recreation. We engaged our business community during this process, getting recommendations from major employers and companies talking about their health and wellness and how that relates to running, and staying active and the benefits to their companies and their company culture that come from that. And then we also engaged the community as a whole And I know Meg had mentioned the production of a video. We did submit a video with the help of a local college. It's a 5-minute video that really just asked runners of all different types and abilities and backgrounds what you love about running in Lynchburg. And we just did a whole montage of that and submitted that as part of our application. Something else very unique in our application was that we did work with the Office of Economic Development, and we were able to survey more than 2,700 businesses in our community. It was a 5-question survey. And we asked them, what does a runner-friendly community mean to you? What do you do as a company to be runner-friendly? Would you be willing to post a runner-friendly sticker in the window of your business? Just a number of questions that really captured where our business community was. We got 62 responses out of the 2,700, but they were extremely valuable, and we included those awesome quotes with our application as well. And as Meg was pointing out, we did a lot once the application was submitted, and we did receive word that we would be a runner-friendly community. We did do things like engage City Council, do a special presentation with them. We also did a press conference downtown that was attended by all of the people who had helped us. As a club, we invested in special shirts, t-shirts that we wore that day that said runner-friendly community on the front of that t-shirt. We had more than 50 of those standing behind us at the podium. The press was there, the mayor talked, city leaders spoke about the importance of running. We also invested dollars in, and this is what Andy was talking about earlier, in promoting the fact that we are runner friendly and using the logo on banners. Many of you may have downtown Main Street areas or other places where on light poles or telephone poles, banners can be placed. And we engaged the city and created runner-friendly community banners. So the entire community knew we were a runner-friendly community. We used the graphics that Road Runners Club of America provided to have these signs, or I should say the banners posted around town. Those banners still live today after 10 years. They come up every year and are put in the downtown area during our marquee event, which is the Virginia 10 miler. I will say this, one of the most valuable things that came from this for our club is that we were really able to redefine to our community who and what the Lynchburg Road Runners Club stood for. With more than 40 years of being involved in Lynchburg, I think there was a little bit of an identity crisis in terms of what the club was. You may have experienced this in your communities. Are we a running club? Are we a racing club? Do only fast people join a club? And as Meg was saying, we were really able to engage with runners. Not all runners race. Not all runners train to be the fastest. You know, some people just enjoy exercise. And to be able to connect with those people and make them feel a part of a running community, I should just say that they're seen, right? And as a club, when we got runner-friendly designation, we had to explain to a lot of people what that really meant. Because initially, still even to this day, say, oh, you know, we're a runner-friendly community. And the first place everyone goes to is races. You must have a lot of races. And that's not what runner-friendly community is really all about. It's about community support for health and wellness through the sport of running. It's about the trails that are available. It's about tracks that are open to the public to use. It's about health and wellness within companies. It's about sponsorship and people supporting different running initiatives like youth running and youth track and field and youth cross country. So to be able to put that all in one document and capture it was really a pivotal moment for our club. And it really opened up, I think, membership to people who saw themselves as part of that community that we as a club were identifying. And so the reapplication every 5 years is great, just great benchmarking for us. We can go back and see where we are as a club. which businesses are still involved, new businesses that are involved. We can look, as we inventory some of our races and events, we can see trends. And also, as the city itself saw us as a group that really was a stakeholder in things like how money should be spent within Parks and Rec, the maintenance of paved bikeways, the addition of benches, water fountains, even the investment in other infrastructure in parks like bathrooms and things like that. We were one of the first calls that the city made after that, because those lines of communication were open. And so I can't say enough great things about the designation. I encourage all of you, if you're not a runner-friendly community, to apply. It could mean a lot.
Thank you, Jeff. That was super insightful, and I think a wonderful sort of longer term perspective on some of what Meg addressed and how these kinds of designations and the whole process can pay dividends for quite a long time. So that's wonderful. And Lynchburg really is something of a model, I think, runner-friendly community for us too, in the way that you all have embraced the designation and what it's done for you. So thank you. So I think a lot of the questions that we had were largely about the process of applying and some of the specifics. So we've kind of gone through some of that, but two things that came up as we were talking more. One is just about the letters of recommendation. And I will say, as someone that has reviewed some of these, that's always a really important component and something that we look at, that there are some basics about infrastructure and things that are almost like a checklist, and basic community support and business support and government support, those are, but to have someone be able to put in a letter, I think we asked for 3, in their own words, what exactly about the community makes it runner friendly. And often you can get kind of creative in who speaks to that. Again, politicians, local leaders are really good examples, but someone who owns the local running store, or an individual who maybe has gotten into fitness and it's sort of changed the way that their quality of life because of the town being runner friendly. Meg, do you remember who did the letters of recommendation for the communities you worked with?
Yeah, we did a variety. Here in Boulder, most recently, we used the full 6 that were available. I think you're right. It's a minimum of 3 and then a maximum of 6 that you can upload. And we had everything from, as you mentioned, the local owner of the Fleet Feet store that was in town. We had a owner of a running nutrition company locally there based in Boulder. Of course, there's a lot of running industry folks there that were at our disposal. We also had, like you mentioned, we had everyday runners who were had a unique or compelling story. We also had a couple of more high profile runners. Local resident Scott Jurek, the famous ultra runner, was kind enough to provide us with a letter of rec. We also had Ryan Van Duzer, who's kind of a running and cycling influencer, as a part of that. So we had a wide variety there. In Tallahassee, we had the mayor, someone from Parks and Rec, I believe. We had the president of our local RRCA club, since the Tallahassee Marathon was the primary member applicant. We had the primary member club take part in that. I'm guessing too that we also had the running store one as a part of that as well. And then I believe we also had another notable runner included there who was no longer a resident, but had spent most of their career in the Tallahassee area. But yeah, we loved having a wide variety of people from that. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the requirements were on a minimum number of recommendations back when we first applied, but we had letters of we did not turn down a letter of recommendation. I mean, we engaged, of course, the mayor, the police chief from a permitting process. But we also picked out community leaders from companies, some of the largest employers in our area, and what they submitted was just unbelievable. I mean, it just what runner friendly meant to their company and their employees, I thought was very compelling. And then, this wasn't a letter of recommendation, but from that survey, that business survey I was talking about, we got some just amazing, amazing stories from the business community. One which came through was a general contractor that was rehabbing a house. And the person that moved to the house said that they first visited Lynchburg while doing a local road race, loved it so much, moved to Lynchburg, bought a house. I mean, that is just like, that's gold. I mean, to share that with the mayor, to share that with, you know, other community leaders about kind of like runner-friendly community in action, like the ultimate, that was just priceless. And we, you know, we still refer back to that.
From a PR standpoint too, Jeff, it's such a nice thing to be able to share when you have events upcoming, that you have those data points or those stories that are kind of juicy human interest stories, or even just interesting stats and numbers that they can run down, whether it's your local newspaper, your local TV station. There's a lot of nice value, like you said, long term, not just for you guys to review as a club to adapt, but also to share out for content for other folks too.
Yeah.
I will say too, and I think Meg and Jeff can kind of both back me up if this is right, but politicians love these opportunities, like to write letters of recommendation, to do photo ops where it's a positive thing about the community. Like most offices, will kind of leap at this chance, and so they're always a really easy get. And it's nice. Say as the RRCA, it's a nice way to be able to say that it's been supported by the mayor, and it's a very good dynamic all around, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
I was just going to share a quick example too. The other designation that Tallahassee earned the same year that we earned the runner friendly designation was the best tasting tap water in the United States. There's all kinds of interesting designations, but I can tell you Tallahassee ran with both. The mayor was so thrilled to talk about how good the tap water was, which it is delicious. But between runner friendly, tap water, and everything in between, there really is just something about it with local leaders that they love this stuff.
I guess in that vein too, we had a question about the video component, which it's, I don't know if either it's not necessarily a requirement. It can sort of supplement. It's in the same way that that the letters are a free space and a way to sort of express some creativity and get a little bit unique and share some local flavor. I think the video is too. And there's not anything that's specifically required, but it's a chance to kind of show. I think the best ones show the community itself and are a way to add a little bit more local color and a little more local flavor in a way that you can't necessarily see from written words. So I think that's, from our end at least, that's the guiding principle, and something that I would just advise folks who are considering doing that to take into consideration.
Yeah, and I think, for us, it was a very low hanging fruit. I mean, I'm not a videographer. I don't have that type of skill. And fast forward to where we are now in 2024 versus 2011. I mean, back then it was even maybe more technical to produce a video. But we were able, again, it was an opportunity to engage a local college, Lynchburg College, to talk to their Department of Communications and say, hey, this would make a great project for some students. And those students just loved it. I mean, they went to Starbucks, where people meet at a certain morning run at 5 a.m. They went to the track and talked to people walking around the track. They went down to the bike path and talked to people. And what we got back was awesome. I mean, you don't have to do it the way we did it. We chose man on the street type of approach. But if you find the right person and they're out there, they could put something together for you quite easily.
We got one more question, and I think this actually might be a good one to end on, unless anybody else wants to jump in after. But Claire asks that Reston, Virginia is a runner and walker friendly. What is runner and walker friendly with miles of paths and benches, meets all the check marks. But will this designation help our running walking club? And Jeff, I mean, I don't know if you want to share your own experience. I think you have a little bit, but I think what you've spoken to kind of answers that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, let me just start by saying getting the designation is only the beginning. I mean, the value of this is both in the process, I feel, of getting the designation, and then once you have it, what you do with it. So, we as a community continue to this day to talk about being a runner-friendly community. And as I was saying earlier, it really allowed us an opportunity to open communication with both government and other leaders in our community about running and why running is important. Also, as we went through that process and marketed the fact that we are a runner-friendly it helped our membership. It helped our membership feel included, that we weren't just a club for fast runners. We weren't just a club that raced. We were a club for everyone. So.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's everything. Meg and Jeff, I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome. I think a lot of great information, a lot of great resources and ideas and thoughts shared, and I hope everyone on the call found beneficial and will be seeing lots of applications this cycle. I dropped the link in the chat to the application. When I follow up afterwards with a link to the recording, I'll make sure to share that as well. But thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful.
Andy, I just thought of one last question.
Sure.
Our club is in the renewal process, 2019 to 2024. And I just had a question from a club member. When does our designation drop? I'm assuming since there's June and November
It's
renewal
through the
dates,
end
it's
of
good
the
for
last year.
Okay,
So it would be December 31st, 2024.
okay. I was thinking that, but I thought better to confirm. Thank you.
Consider confirmed. That's a good thing to have on recording. So to do. So yeah. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is wonderful. And I will talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks you, everybody.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you both so much.
Andy, well done. You've motivated me to go update everything and include even our runner-friendly video in our marketing emails. Like, don't forget. But that's my new push, is to make Tucson realize that it is itself a destination and try to get more people here.
There you go. All right. Well, good. Well, that meeting's a success then, if that's come out of it. So we'll take it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.